massive alliance and stars for Watchung, and we will shine all year long. There's a series of events being put together, so please, if you've not done so already, sign up for the events or sign up for alerts. The big ones are May 30th will be a concert and our 100th celebration over at Phillips Field. Founders Day, which will be June 13th, over here at Best Lake, starting in the morning with the Mayor's Regatta, and then opening up the time capsule. How many people in the room here believe they put something in the time capsule? Oh, we have several. Does anybody actually remember what they put in there? Yeah. So that seems to be a common theme, and let's hope that Mother Nature is kind and it's not lots of mud. But it was put there May 23rd in the year 1976. So it's amazing how fast those years go by. And really, think of June 13th Founders Day. The big one, of course, the building next door. You see the steel going up for our new Watchung Community Connection, containing the Centennial Library, will be opening up as well. So the dates on that are obviously dependent on construction schedules, but we're hoping by early fall we will be doing ribbon cutting over there. Camp Endeavor as well, part of our history. We got $367,000 in funding from Somerset County, so we thank them. That will be basically becoming passive walking trails, be ADA compliant where you go in the park. The road will stay there, that'll be crushed stone, then you go in and park on ADA compliant. And then there'll be a walking trail loop. I think it's 1,800 something square feet, linear feet, so about a quarter-mile loop. So of course we love walking around the lake. We come out with a meeting on Monday nights, that's 7 o'clock and 6:30, depending on the time zone, and come for a walk around the lake. Many will come enjoy that time very much. Enjoy the beauty of our borough, and then you'll be able to walk up in the woods as well, Camp Endeavor. With that said, I thank first Chris Vander, big round of applause for Chris. For the history of the Borough of Watchung, I thank him. I want to thank Mike Pardo, my co-chair for the exam. Not only the vice chair for the committee, but graciously accepted she is the historian for the year of 2026. Be remiss and be in trouble if I didn't thank my wife, Karen, in the back, who for all of us to enjoy. And we started this year with the historical group, and everybody was like, what are we going to do? How are we going to do it? And the truth is, there's an old very simple saying, perfect is the enemy of good, right? So this is the first one. This is meant to get your feedback, obviously your participation, but I see so many people here on Fliet. This is just phenomenal. But any suggestions you have, everything's taken to heart, and we just want to continue having more of these things. We had the open house at Texir last weekend, which was amazing. Just by nuancing it to a theme, winter time in Watchung, we had so many first timers that had not been there yet. So I think we're going to do probably one of those a month, and maybe 6 or 8 of these, depending on how things go. But again, this is a more intimate setting. This is where we want to come and share stories. I'm a newcomer. I've only been here for 31 years. So I love hearing the stories of the 50s, the 30s, the 20s. I mean, like what this borough was when it came to be.
Thank you so much, Mayor Jubin. As Mayor Jubin already said, welcome to the first event as part of Watchung's 100th anniversary. We welcome you, and we're happy you were able to join us tonight. This event will be in 2 parts. The first part is we'll show about 30 minutes of film about Watchung specifically. This one will be an overall general overview of Watchung, so you'll get a little taste of everything about Watchung history. The second one will do a very short 2-minute film with some older footage from the 1960s that we found. That should be really cool. After the films, we're going to open up to the public, and we ask that you share your favorite memories of growing up in Watchung. And even if you're somebody that you're new to Watchung, some of the more recent favorite memories of growing up in Watchung. We're always making more memories. So we ask you to share that tonight, and we'll go one by one. As you feel welcome to, we'll start with one person, just keep going through. Before I give you an introduction on Watchung, something that Sue Tucker and I wrote together, I want to start out by saying this video we're about to watch is actually from 1994. This segment covers an overall history of Watchung, but as we'll find with many of the videos we plan to share this year, they show how simple life was in Watchung back in the day. Many people who have seen these videos often tell me how crazy and how much simpler of a time it was back in the day. This video is a reminder of what Watchung's simple past was like, despite all the industry that once was part of the fabric of Watchung. I have said from very early on that oral history are those stories you cannot put in a picture frame. We all have so many memories that we don't have pictures of. In fact, many of these memories cannot be captured in a photo because they are so personal to each of us, how we experience it, and what makes it, and that's what makes them so special. And now for your introduction. Currently in 2026, Watchung is a community consisting of 6,450 residents and straddles the first two Watchung Mountains, created by glaciers about 190 million years ago. The first mountain in from the ocean, rising from the sandy plains of New Jersey. The original residents were, as the legend tells us, the Lenape, who gave the mountains their names, which mean high hills. Watchung has been called Browstown and Washingtonville. It was once part of Warren and later North Plainfield, before being incorporated as the Borough of Watchung in 1926. Early businesses were focused on natural resources, farming, copper mines, trapping, and processing animal furs. People turned to the salt of the mountains itself for trap rock, evident of the exhausted quarries where the Watchung Police Station and Schmidt Circle are located today. These operations continue to this day at Weldon Quarry. The first Watchung Mountains were invaluable during the American Revolution when George Washington stationed outlook troops along its ridge, where a series of signal fires were lit that were critical early warning systems the British were approaching from Staten Island and Manhattan. Every individual who's lived here has a story to tell, and today we let our neighbors recall their memories, their reflections of Watchung.
First of all, my first question is, who else has been here since before 1951? I guess that makes me the antique of the building. I grew up here. My name is Paul Ost, as he said. I've been here all my life, basically. I grew up here. I was a key part of Wilson Memorial Church, as we know, is right over here, because my dad, Roland, was the pastor from 1945 to 1975. I lived in the church houses until the early 70s when I bought my own house here in town, and I've been here since. Just a quick aside, from looking at these film clips, I sat on the wall by the brook and watched the house hotel fire. I was there, I watched that, and some of the other things, my life's experiences here go way back. Interesting. But anyway, the church houses, being the preacher's kid, we lived on, there was a stone house where the church is now, that we moved out of there in about 54, 55. They bought a house down in the valley by the castle, which I spent time running around, and know the mausoleum. I know all those places up there. And then when the church house, which is the current house next to the church, became available, they bought that place, and we moved in. And living there, we had a lot of property in the back to play around and ride around. The neighbors, we had cars and drove all over the property, and it goes up 3-4 houses up there. The church owns that property off behind Hillcrest Road. And the neighborhood was very tight. Growing up with all the friends on Hillcrest Road. And part of driving around the church property and all the parking lot areas, we got a little bit of time driving experience. And I know Marilyn's heard me tell this story. But at one point in the mid-60s, when we were in high school, a few of us would get together and decide that we would go somewhere between like 2 and 4 in the morning was your deepest sleep. And one of the other things I did, I went and oiled all the hinges in the garage door so you could open and close the garage door without making any noise at night. And we got into this routine, and there were several of us, of which some people you would know the names. One of them was Nicky Alberino, and the Alberinos lived on Hillcrest, just a couple houses up from the valley on the left side. And Nicky and I were pretty close characters and doing things. Across the street, some of the homes, one of them was owned by the Adams family, and one of those people was a police officer, Ray Adams, who, anybody has ever seen the book about Watchung and the Hillcrest Road stories, Ray wrote that thing. It's incredible. But anyway, so we got into this thing where we would go at night, open up the garage door, I'd get the car out, go partway down the driveway, and Nicky'd close the door and we'd jump in the car. And we would pick up other people, including some of the young ladies in town, that was my same age at the time, and go for rides, whether it was a half an hour, hour and a half. The first or second night we took a ride, we went out towards, like the, not the Veterans Building, but out the other side of Bridgewater, out that way somewhere. We went by the youth detention center. And the guy said, what are you telling us there for? I said, because if we get caught, that's where we're going to go. So we have to be careful what we do. So we typically went about a half an hour, and if we went longer, we'd stop at the gas station and make sure the gas gauge was the same as when we got in the car. So mom or dad in the car realized they had to have a tank. They were going to go, what happened here? The other part of the sneaky ops was on the second floor of the houses where we all had our bedrooms. And when I went out at night, I put something up against my bedroom door. So I knew if the door got opened while I was out, because I climbed out the window of the second floor onto a putty-sitter roof, and climbed down, again, got in the car, and went for rides. And again, we'd pick up people and ride around and do some crazy things. And one night, Nicky's sister had just gotten a pretty new car. I don't think it was a year old. And I sat in the driver's seat and Nick gave it a little push to get it so we could get closer to Hillcrest to start the motor without hearing the motor. Well, we're about halfway down the driveway to get to the edge, and here comes Nicky yells, "Cop, cop." So I just lay down on the seat, and the light, I can see the light, you know, they always had the spotlights on the side of the cars, and I see the light spanning across the windshield and stuff, and all I hear is this voice, who happens to be our neighbor, police officer Ray Adams, saying, "Nick, is everything okay? Is everything okay? You didn't get out of the car." And he says, "Yeah, something happened. My sister just got this car, and I was inside, and I thought I heard something, and sure enough, the car was moving a little bit." So he says, "Have you got a key? Can you get it back up?" He says, "I'm going to go in, I'll get my sister, I'll get the key, I'll take care of it." He says, "Okay." He says, "You know, do me a favor, ask your mom to stop by headquarters tomorrow." So he goes up the hill, I sit up, fire up the car, pull it up, and we get out and go, "Oh boy, oh boy." Now mind you, Nick's mom is one of the cool moms. You know, you're 14, 15 years old, and you might be able to have a beer sitting at the table in the house. And the next day, we go to school, we come back home, and she brings us in the house and says, "I don't know what's going on. The police are wondering if something's going on in the neighborhood. So they're kind of keeping tabs, and they're not sure what's going on, but they're a little suspicious." That was the story. So we took a week or two off, didn't go out, and then we started doing it again. And again, we'd go out for hour rides and come back. We'd pick up other people, again, including some of the young ladies we were in high school with. And we did it for a while, then it ended. And the whole reason for telling you this crazy story, well, for one, I learned how to be pretty sneaky. I became a police officer. I did 25 years. As a policeman. And Russ Leffert and I, as you know, Russ, the retired police chief in Warren, I was the patrol captain in Piscataway. We said, one of our phrases is, you got to know crime to fight it. We like to think we were really good at what we did. So, but anyway, we finished doing this stuff. I don't remember even how long, what the gap was. And then we each got our licenses and we didn't need any of this junk. Well, this was going on in the mid-60s. And again, it's fun watching this film, watching the Blackadar family and the Aldrich family, all people that I grew up with. And everybody knew everybody, particularly the Hillcrest Road people. Again, the names, I could just rattle them off. It's incredible. And I love that I've been here all this time, and obviously I'm still sticking around. But the kicker to the story, it's the link. If you want to talk about the link and the love and the connections to Watchung. I get a call, I don't know, it was 10, 12 years ago from Barbara Dean. And Barbara Dean calls me and says, Paul, you got to come over. I forgot to tell you, but we're having a luncheon. And all the old townies that she grew up with, that were my parents' buddies, were all over there for lunch. I said, I'll be there shortly. There was no way I was going to miss this. And like I said, everybody was all family. It was like one giant family all connected growing up in this community. It was fantastic. So I go in, making my rounds, saying hello, shaking hands. And one of the people there is Ray Adams, our retired Watchung policeman, who I haven't seen in years. And people are telling stories about, who I knew and who knew my dad and my mom and all the interconnections. And at one point I said, we had a great time. We had such a good time. We had such fun. We got away with stealing, the neighbor cars and doing this and that. And Ray goes, Paul, stop. He says, I hate to break your bubble here, he says, but everybody knew what you were doing. No one wanted to tell your father. And again, we're talking something that I did in the 60s, and this pops up about 10, 12 years ago at a party at Barbara Dean's house. And that's one of my favorite crazy things. And my strength comes from living in Watchung and my connections. Like I said, I joined the fire company in the 70s. Another one of the pictures there, you talk about connections in history, the picture of the Borough Hall, the day of the flood. There's a bunch of people on the lawn. I'm one of them. I'm in that picture. Because when the flood was coming and we were watching cars move, I went over to the firehouse, which I had just gotten in maybe that year. I think the only person around, I think Gary's got me by about a year with the fire company. Talk about antiques again. I went over to the firehouse and got a piece of rope. And I went down, got it all wet, and I tied the rope around the fender of the car, and I tied it to the railing on the front of the building. And at one point, the car floated around until the rope taut, and the car couldn't go further, it didn't go down into the river. Crazy stuff. But again, I appreciate getting a chance to talk. I appreciate your patience. But it's a phenomenal, beautiful town. Sue, we've got stories she knows too about some stuff here. But you can't be in a better place. Can't be in a better place. I love it. I'm proud of it. I'm proud of the time I've served here and trying to take care of things and still involved with taking care of the church and what have you in the firehouse. I love it. So everybody, welcome to Watchung, and have a great time.
My name is Don Minetti. My wife Lori's here. She's been here forever.
Thank you.
1960. We moved here in 1967. I was 11 years old. And my father and my uncle had 4 lots on Valley Drive. We lived across the street from Sue. She knows us very well. We knew them. It was a different time in the 60s. Brook Drive is right across the street from us. They were all our friends. 11 houses, 33 kids. That was just Brook Drive. And it was Valley Drive and Will Lane. There were just a boatload of kids. And this being winter, this winter is more like the winters that I remember, back in the day when the lake would freeze. And what my brother and I would do is we'd walk down Brook Drive, cut down one of the houses, either the Hardings or the Roggs or the Jollies or whatever, get down to the creek, we take off our shoes, put our skates on, skate and hide it so no one can see, skate down the lake, go to the bridge, go over, skate as long as we can until they made us leave. And every afternoon after school, the place was loaded with kids skating. I mean, it was fantastic. We'd play hockey, we'd just skate around, whatever it might be. Remember the days when it was, it was cold long enough, you get a Jeep out there and plow, and clean off all the snow. Wish we could do that again. It was Burgott's house at that point, the best sold house. It was a flag, it was red, couldn't skate. It was green, go. And that's where we would all be back in the day. Thank you.
Listening to Paul speak, it reminds me, and he knows this, when we first moved to town, we lived on Hillcrest Road for a year, and the first person we met was Paul's dad, the minister, Reverend Haas, and he brought us a cake that Paul's mom was famous for baking for newcomers. My mom thought that was pretty cool, very welcoming, and the next day the fire siren went off, and there's Reverend Haas driving the fire truck up the hill at full speed. And it was a town where people did various things. And we do have a fire hat in our exhibit in the museum. That was from Paul's dad. And we have one of the great things about our fire company is that it is still volunteer. And there are people in this room who have generations of their family, I don't know, 4 or 5? Where's Gary? 5? 5 generations of his family have been volunteers in our fire department. So if there are any newbies who are thinking about getting involved in something like that, it'd be wonderful. Volunteerism, upholds this town. It really thrives on it. But one of the things Don mentioned, I remember when his house was built, and we were in shock, because I lived right across the street, and it was huge. I mean, we lived in a little 3-bedroom ranch, and this great, big colonial was going up, and then another one 2 doors up the hill for his uncle's family. And at that point, Valley Drive wasn't paved, and in the winter, you couldn't drive up the hill. You parked at the bottom somewhere. You kept sleds in the car. We dragged my little brother, who was a little punk, up the hill on the sled, and then of course we'd get to go down the hill on the sled to get back to the car. But we would go up to Johnston Drive, which is a pretty long hike for little kids, and sled all the way down to Valley Road, as long as no car tried to come. And there were unwritten etiquette of Valley Drive rules. If a car was trying to come up the hill and you were trying to drive down the hill, it was your job to get out of their way. Because if they stopped, they were going to be stuck, and so were you. And we met a lot of neighbors, and actually some people who later became clients, getting stuck in front of our house on Valley Drive. They touched on the castle here, and the Moldinki family was so much more than just that building, although the skylight that they talk about is in the Texier Museum. If you haven't seen it, that was preserved. But if anybody in the room has stories about playing in the castle and running around the castle, I'd like to talk to them about it. We're always always gathering information and artifacts.
We moved here in '94, and then we had our first oldest son in '97, New Year's Eve. So we didn't, we moved in October 28th, 1994. We're so excited, right? With homeowners, we go out, buy all this candy, and we're waiting, and not one kid comes to the house. And we're like, what do we do wrong? Like, why don't people like us, right? So and then when our kids were little, we used to go down to Cranford, where my wife and I both grew up, we trick-or-treat down there. And then years later, I guess when he's in school, we find out that everybody trick-or-treats over by Valley. So how, has that always been that way? Has that always been the trick-or-treat section of the town?
No.
No?
Not always,
Yeah.
but trick-or-treating in my neighborhood, Valley Drive neighborhood,
Okay.
has never been really busy.
It's a little hilly, yeah.
In fact, the lady, Jack Jolly's mom, used to tell a story about how, somebody rang the doorbell for Halloween, and she opened the door, and there's my brother on his horse on her front porch.
Oh.
So she was looking at this horse. He was being headless horseman.
Okay. Full costume and gown.
But I did just, a young family just came to town, bought the house I grew up in, and they were all excited. They told me about trick-or-treating on Halloween on Valley Drive. And so I directed them to Valley
Yeah.
View.
Okay, well, that's it. And I think that's one of the other things, is I talk to folks who grew up in the different neighborhoods. So that's why I like hearing these stories, because you find out that, yes, I realize it's a close-knit community, but each little neighborhood, if you will, right, had your own little, I guess, crew or group that kind of went together. Because the other question I would have for old timers here, because the other thing when our kids, we went out and bought all these really nice bikes, and I think they were used 3 times. In fact, when we were down the street, I'm like, does he even know how to ride a bicycle? Because we were on Upper Drive, which is famously by the 13th pump with the bend that wraps around the corner there, where my neighbor used to pick kids up out of the stone wall there. So needless to say, they weren't riding their bikes up and down. But did you guys used to bike around a lot when you were kids?
Yes, mine does.
Yeah.
Valley Drive, too.
Yeah, I assume that. And then people used to sleigh ride down Hillcrest as well. So it was a different time.
When my husband and I and our 2 children needed to move to New Jersey from the city, it was traumatic. Some of you who may have had the same experience, you get like, this is a different world from New York City. But we actually looked at Chatham, because I was still working in the city, so Chatham was a good commute. But one day, we accidentally came up on the hill, all the way where the 78 is, and looked at a house that was awful. We didn't like the house. But we said, oh, we have still a little time before we go to Chatham again, so let's drive into this town. So we drove down Hillcrest. And immediately I was like, wait a minute, this looks like what I want. Because my hometown in Germany looks a little bit like it. There are hills. When something is flat, it doesn't feel like home. But when I went down that hill, and then there was a beautiful lake, oh my goodness. And we went right into Bikers on the Circle. Bikers that just crossed, right? And we went in there and we said, we don't even know that we want something here, but if I want something, I want a new house in an old neighborhood. And she said, I think I know what you want. She took us to a house on Washington Drive, right 2 houses up from the fire department, and that's where we ended up. And we still are, hopefully for a few more years. Is your mom's name Astrid?
Yes.
Okay, because I met her through the Silas at different birthday parties. So the people were all very nice, and including Sue's mom. And what I wanted to say also that one of the big attractions after I started living here was the art center. I wanted to, I didn't quite know what to do. When I was living in New York, I was involved in the PTA, I was in this and that and the other thing. And here I was a little bit lost. And then I saw the art center, and I went in, and I started volunteering. And then I started being on the boards, and I was not in the fire department, I was in the, nothing like this. But the art center was the place where I started volunteering. I thought it was wonderful that in a place like so small as Watchung, there is concerts, there was beautiful music, there was the art, and there still is. Heinz Otto was the one who was, and so I got also to be a board member and so on. So I have a long history with the art center, and I really do appreciate this place and the whole of Watchung.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
We moved to Watchung in 1967 when I was midway through third grade, so I went to Bayberry, Valley View, and Watchung Hills. And I guess my initial memories, by the way, we went to Berkeley. We lived on High Tour Drive, on that side of our town. So we'd go to Berkeley Heights for trick-or-treating because the homes were closer together in Berkeley Heights. But, you know, my father was the president, I guess in the early 70s, of Brook Hill Swim Club, which unfortunately now is closed. But Brook Hill Swim Club used to just have a gravel road that went right from Dale Lane, which is right off of High Tour Drive, and went right through the woods. There was no Route 78. It hadn't been cut through yet. It was all forest, and it was just, we walked through there. And so 78 really changed this town a lot. And when they finally put it through, it ended right at exit 41 there, right at Drift Road and right by High Tour Drive. And Brook Hill Swim Club, the highway went right through the access road to Brook Hill Swim Club, so they did a condemnation. They gave Brook Hill a lot of money, and they built tennis courts and a basketball court and all that sort of thing, the money they got from the Route 78 condemnation. And Route 78, there also used to be something called the German Camp that is now, I think, Parlin Lane, I think is where Parlin Lane is now, and Shone Drive, those streets right off Ridge Road. There was something called the German Camp, and they had a swimming pool, they had a huge soccer field, which is actually on the other side of 78, it would be, I guess, the north side of 78. They had probably 20 or 30 cabins there, and people from German descent would come up there and spend their summers up there on the weekends. And when 78 came through, they went kind of right through the middle of the German camp. They used to, after school, on High Tour Drive, there were 110 kids on High Tour Drive alone. And the school bus would basically come to High Tour Drive, go to Joan Drive, Parlin Lane, and then go right on to the schools because it was full. The buses were full at that point. And the way it worked was, you know, the big kid would get off the school bus at 3 o'clock, and the 7th and 8th graders would say we'd meet at the German Camp soccer field to play two-hand touch football, or probably tackle football back in those days. And the big kids, the older kids would pick the teams, and there was no such thing as Pop Warner back then. Pop Warner didn't start in Watchung until I was in 7th and 8th grade. So it was this, you know, old school kind of way of playing after school. And you play basketball in someone's driveway because there were no rec leagues back in those days. But yeah, Route 78 changed a lot. Even in high school, I found it a lot easier to walk through the woods down Route 78 than hitchhike on Route 78 to Watchung Hills High School, which is right through the woods. And I usually get picked up by the same state trooper every day. And say, you're not allowed to hitchhike on federal highways. I said, oh, I missed the bus, what else am I going to do? Well, he missed it intentionally, because we get there before the bus would. So, yeah, it was a different time and place, and yeah, we used to sleigh ride down High Tour Drive, and we had the same rules of the road applied. If your car's trying to get out, you would get stuck, so you had to get off the road. And we'd also, I don't know if anyone remembers the old bridle path, which is Old Somerset Street. And Old Somerset Street ran the entire length of the ridge all the way out to Runnels Hospital from Hillcrest. And we would ride toboggans and sleighs from the top of Ridge Road down to, I forget what the street is, right across from Bayberry Lane, but Tuttle Road. Yeah, so we ride from Ridge Road down to Tuttle Road. And then we used to ride snowmobiles and dirt bikes along the bridle path for a lot of times. So, a lot of fun.
Still there.
Still, the part of it's still there.
Yeah. It's right behind my house.
part of it's not built homes on it, I guess, too.
When I got married, we literally got home from our honeymoon, saw the ad in the paper for the house, and said, drove by it, and said, that's it. We drove all over New Jersey, I mean, the Northeast, from like West Orange down to Coleston. And my poor realtor, Barbara Cocor, who lived on
Do I have
Southern.
little bits today?
Yes, well, I said hi, we said hi. You know, she was very patient, and every one time we're looking at a house in Roseville Park, and I'm like, my wife and her fiance, they look and go, you're not gonna buy this house, your taxes are too high, you need to be somewhere else. So ironically, we wind up looking up and watching where she lives, but a fun story, so we finally get the house, we move in that day, and then she goes, okay, I will see you guys in the springtime. I'm like, what? She goes, I don't drive my car up these mountain roads. She goes, wait till you drive on Johnson Drive in the winter. It's you know what, so, but listen, it's for our 31 years, we literally moved in right there. Our youngest daughter's in the back there. I'm a volunteer on the rescue squad, Board of Health, to the thing. I think it's so important that you give back for your community. All of you who have inspired me by all your volunteerism, inspired me to be on the Board of Health, to coach in the schools, for my wife to be on the, you know, all the class mothers and special events, all that fun stuff. I think this is what really, as I started out tonight saying, even though it's 100 years later, 900 to 6,485, give or take, I think it still has that fabric. I think it still has that character. I think it still has its charm.
My name is Tim Logan, and I've been a resident since 1964. Lived on Sterling Road, and I currently live in the house I grew up in. I moved out, started a family, and just fell into a situation where I was blessed enough to be able to come back to the town of Watchung. And, you know, everybody sharing just brought up so much memories when we were, you know, someone was talking earlier about ice skating on Best Lake. I mean, couldn't have had more fun. And my feet would be frozen solid and I wouldn't leave. And, you know, going down Old Somerset Street, which was the path that you were just talking about. We rode motorcycles up and down and pissed every neighbor that was along that trail the whole time, and they'd lay logs in it and we'd throw them away. And going up to around the time I was in middle school, 78 was going through, and we'd ride up we'd take our mini bikes all the way up there and ride up Suicide Hill. And
The water tower hill.
Yeah, you know, we just couldn't find enough places to go and have a good time. Over by Twin Brooks, we'd go running through the woods in there, and there were so many, you know, activities that we could just do on our own and not have to worry about having something store-bought to find something fun to do. You know, there were so many. I remember right out there, we were under the little, I think it's a different color now, but it was that little red bridge there where the stream goes through over there, and we were throwing snowballs at cars. And the police pulled up. We ran up into Dr. Gates's office, and he was the dentist on the second floor of the Campbell Barn building over there. And we hid, and we had another kid with us that didn't run. So we're sitting in the bathroom upstairs, and I'm waiting about 15 minutes and didn't hear anything. And we go down, and he's still standing there. I said, what happened? He said, yeah, I told him your names. You got to get over there in 10 minutes. It's big trouble. They're going to call you back. So we had to go and fess up that we were throwing snowballs. I mean, it was, but you know, I don't remember who ran the event, but somewhere down by where Runnels was, the old Runnels, they used to have like an Easter egg thing, and you'd go find eggs in the grass. There were so many wholesome things to do here, and I was so blessed to be able to have my children grow up here, you know, because it's very close to a lot of hustle and bustle, but it's one of the most beautiful places I ever lived in. I wouldn't change it for anything. There's so many memories in my mind and all surround this area. It's just such a beautiful place to live, and I'm very grateful.
My name is Kurt Weber. I don't have as long a history in town here. When I was married, we moved here in 2006. At that point, I had 2 little kids. And at first, I didn't want to move here. We were living in Scotch Plains where all the houses were close together, and that was similar to my childhood down in Old Bridge, where kids could ride their bikes everywhere, and there was always kids all over the street. But once we got onto Tuttle, and it was surrounded by woods, I said, this is great. My kids, I grew up in the woods, playing in the woods. My kids are going to be out there all the time. Well, this was the early 2000s. They were the iPad generation. They didn't quite spend as much time outside. But we got them involved in things, and one thing that I love about this town that I found out early is a lot of the organizations that exist. You know, for my kids, they did have Little League. We had parades around the lake, and that was fantastic. And we had rec basketball, and of course, Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, and even the things at the school, the Bayberry Halloween Parade. A lot of stuff would bring the families together, and I'm still very close to a lot of these families through that were my kids, you know, friends. And that was really special. But I also wanted to say that some of the magic and mischief that you got into still exists for my kids. Now, they're in their late teens, early 20s now. But I found out later, you know, years later, some of the stories they would tell me about things that they were discovering when they were wandering around town, which not a lot of kids do these days, but you do still see some getting out there and you know, just walking around or riding their bikes or whatever. They found a couple swimming holes. One was right below Wetumpka Falls. And I was kind of surprised, you know. I was like, I wish you guys would have called me. I'm a big kid. I want to go in there, right? But he said, yeah, they came back dripping wet with towels and everything. I'm like, yeah, we just found a swimming hole. We were swimming around down there and everything. I was like, that's freaking great, you know. And so some of that magic, I think, is still here for the younger generations as long as we just allow them to discover it, right? But yeah, that's all I want to say about this town. It's wonderful.
Thank you, Chris, for